Welcome to a new Growth Interviews episode. I'm now with Michael Perry from Shopify. Thanks a lot, Michael, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Pleasure to be here. I got into digital e-commerce after failing. So I guess the larger thing is I got into working in small business back in 2010. I wanted to be a technologist that focused on helping small business owners build a successful business. And I focused initially on retail, physical business. And after that business shut down, I became really focused on online businesses. And then started a partnership with Etsy, and then built into Shopify, and eventually built into eCommerce and Ticktail and Big Cartel, and just became hyper focused on online business. That was probably around 2013, 2014. Yeah. The opportunity, the largest opportunity in my mind is actually quite singular. The reason why historically we have grown to love to buy from our local merchants and brick and mortar businesses and our local butcher and all these things is the relationship is what has bound us together. Yeah. And that relationship creates repeat buying and lifetime value and all the things that are buzzwords today that we should have always been caring about. Not just the acquisition aspect, but the extending the relationship and owning larger portions of that wallet share at a continuous level. And so I think that the gap that is existing today between the physical world and the digital world is that physical merchants deeply understand who you are and what you like and want to earn and maintain your business. When you go into your local pub, they may know your name, they may know what kind of drink you like. When you go into your local coffee shop, you're a barber, you're a hair cutter, you're a retail business of sorts. The relationship is why you continue to go back. You can buy coffee anywhere, but you go to the same place for a very particular reason. And e-commerce businesses need to get hyper focused on how can they recreate that experience through the digital lens of today's world. Some of the attraction and some of the allure to shifting your business from a physical space to a digital space is that people think about scale, right? They think about the global economy. What they did not take into consideration is that consumer needs and consumer behavior has not changed, right? So consumers deeply crave that relationship, that intimacy, that experience, and it's hard to do at scale. It's easy to do in a brick and mortar business because there's a finite amount of people that can walk through the door. There's a finite amount of people that you can serve. Whereas in e-commerce, you can sell to 100 customers at one time. Yeah. Right? The checkout experience is self-serve. And so the way that e-commerce has been designed really makes it an uphill challenge to, at time of transaction, to build that relationship. Someone is looking through a screen, they don't get to know who you are, versus when you go into that coffee shop or your barber or whoever, you're physically viewing the person, you're touching the person, you get to know the person, you have a conversation with the person. And so I think that the foundation of how commerce has moved online, that did not carry over. And so the mental model of how online should work has made people forget about it. I think that what we're going full circle is realizing that we need to figure out how to build relationships one-to-one at infinity. How do you sell to 100 people at once, but make them all feel like they know exactly who you are? I think that uniquely with marketplaces, it is always going to be hard to have that relationship. Have you bought things off of Amazon before?
Yeah.
Can you name a merchant that you bought from?
No,
Amazon?
of course.
It's designed for you to think that you're just buying from Amazon. But there is a seller on the other end, right? Whereas Shopify we uniquely want to empower entrepreneurs, and we want to create more entrepreneurs, and we want to put entrepreneurs up front and center, and we want to build the tooling to allow for these relationships to not only exist, but to blossom, to grow, to bear fruit. We make lots of investments in establishing the buyer to merchant relationship. My team very specifically built a product called Shopify Ping, which is meant to empower our merchants to talk directly to their customers through an omni-channel experience. We built Shopify Chat as a native offering within that, again, to connect buyers directly to merchants and allow for merchants to leverage their story. So we are taking steps forward in this, and we deeply believe that the direct consumer space isn't just about cutting the middleman out, but it's about owning the relationship. Well, besides all the things that we just talked about, because I think that the largest space is actually learning how to create that relationship and to care about your customers and to do the thoughtful things at scale. That world, I think, is massively underserved, and I think that people want to look at segmentation and sending personal emails and stuff of that nature, but there's a layer above that isn't just about relationship management, but actual relationship development. And those are two separate things in my mind, right? Managing and keeping in touch versus how do you move from being a customer to I'm at a place now where I text message with particular merchants that I buy from, and we've reached a friendship level. They ask about my son. They ask questions about my family. They know the holidays are coming up. That relationship shift, that development of maturity, is something that is going to be what separates good businesses from great businesses. I think the other thing is just thinking global. Your business, I think, has to be at the right time and at the right place to sell to the larger audience. But e-commerce now truly knows no bounds. Logistics is in a place where you can sell everywhere. Shopify is doing a lot with dynamic pricing, so that if a customer is looking at something in a different country, we should be able to help facilitate those kind of relationships. So I don't think that you have to just serve your market anymore, but you have to be prepared to when you move into those markets. I think that has been something that, again, people think that and realize that e-commerce is not restricted to a physical space. And they rush through the process of developing their brand and business in particular pockets. You have to have a strategy for going global. You can't just rush it. It's interesting. I look at this through kind of two different lenses, right? At first, I was a developer who built on all these platforms, and so I got to know them at a very intimate level. I think that the question comes down to taste and preference. Ultimately, if you're an athlete, you can choose to wear Adidas or Reebok. Many athletes choose to wear Nike because Nike is a company for athletes and it builds the best products for athletes. And I think Shopify, in a very unique way, is the entrepreneurship company, and we put entrepreneurs first, and we continue to simplify our product, and I would like to think relentlessly invest in building better products to help and empower entrepreneurship up front and center and allow them to compete with anybody. I'm not in the business of, shitting, I guess, for lack of better words, on Magento or BigCommerce or WooCommerce or any of those businesses. I think that our track record and our product offering is just simply the best. And if you're very serious about entrepreneurship, or you want to embark in being, one of the courageous ones, I think that we have the best offering to do that. So I think, Shopify Plus is a phenomenal product for our merchants that are at a larger size scale. It's not the right fit for everybody, and I don't know what size merchants that you're catering to, but I'm guessing that they're in a range of scale that would justify it. Obviously, having a more tailored checkout experience to me is a strong reason, because you want to holistically own your brand and own your consumer experience, and Shopify Plus empowers people to do that. Plus has its own white glove service in helping driving merchant success. So for a variety of reasons, and the transaction costs and things that kind of get bundled into Plus, again, if your business is at a size of scale that justifies it, Plus is the right solution and the right fit for you. And that's why we introduced that product to the market, because we realized that a lot of our merchants were reaching a stage of maturity and brand awareness that they needed to have a bit more control. I think, I started working in software in 2006, so I'm not an OG by any stretch of the imagination. What excites me, though, is that over the last, let's just say 15 years, what we've seen is that the barrier of entry to participate continues to drop. Right, and I just love entrepreneurs. I just love people who are trying to solve a problem, trying to delight people, trying to bring joy to people's life. And the more entrepreneurs that we can create, I think the better off the planet is going to be. So Shopify is very unique because as a platform, we continue to drop that barrier to allow more voices to sit at the table rather than few. And I think that philosophical belief that everyone should be participating in entrepreneurship is what has me excited about life. And it doesn't have to just be selling direct to consumers through Shopify, but we have all these new applications out there that are codeless apps for people who have no technical competency to be able to start building a software company tomorrow. These kind of things just get me super excited because I think you're going to find a whole new pool of talent and creativity and problem solvers that the world needs right now. I think the world is filled with some unique problems, and I believe entrepreneurs are the people to solve them. This is I think this is a really important conversation that everyone should be having. And I'm a net new father. I have a 5-month-old son. And
congrats.
Thank you. And I'm really concerned about him and his future children and what the state of the planet will look like. I hope that entrepreneurs solve the problem. I believe that they're the most capable to solve the problem, but it requires a global participation to recognize that we do have a problem. There's still a lot of people who, for a variety of reasons, don't want to believe that global warming is an issue. There's still a lot of people who believe the only issue is rising sea levels. There's a lot of gaps of education that we need to fill to bring everyone to the same playing field of understanding that we are, in no long period of time looking at potentially human extinction.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about right now, is that over the next couple of 100 years, and really starting in the next 30 years, we're going to start seeing potentially the decline of the human race and chaos. And so I have openly put on Twitter and Facebook, I am actually personally looking to find companies to angel invest in that are focused in this space. I want to participate. If I can't solve the problem myself by building products that are solving the problem, I at least want to empower other entrepreneurs to go out there and solve it. So I'm open to anyone who's watching this who's working on any sort of green energy or sustainability project to please email me directly at np@shopify.com. I want to look at every company I possibly can. As a company, we've taken a very strong stance about this and made a recent announcement that we're funding up to $1 million per year to try to be more eco-friendly and to contribute to Earth sustainability. And there's a ton of information online about the various initiatives that we're going to be doing ongoing. It's not a one-time thing. It's an investment. And I applaud Toby, our CEO, because I think it's something that more CEOs need to be taking this position that have the resources to be combative with. But it's, you're likely talking about the largest problem of the human race. There's a lot of different things I feel like I've learned. We say at Shopify, 1 year here feels like 10 years anywhere else because we've just seen so much exponential growth. It means that you also have to grow up 10 years in one. So I feel like I've grown up 30 years in the last 3 years of being there. I think that there's two things that matter really deeply, regardless if you're a SaaS company or the size of your business. And one is always be just humble and grateful that you're on this mission of getting to do something special. Right? I think that as time goes on, people get out of touch with their users, they get out of touch with the problem, they become more comfortable, they become more successful, and it's about being grounded to reality. And when the leader or the leaders of the company, when their distance to the front line is the shortest and they're the ones still on the battlefields with the customers and understanding the problems and being involved in the product, that has a ripple effect across the company that keeps everyone hyper engaged. no one is too good or too high up in the company that shouldn't be able to pick up the phone and talk to a customer. No one should be avoiding the problems. No one should be not turning over stones and being honest, right? And I think that humility, that there's more to do than what's been accomplished, it creates a unique sense of urgency and respect at a company-wide level. I would say, kind of piggybacking off of that, one thing that's massively impressed me about Shopify is that every step of the way we have invested very heavily in our team. Right, so we've kept our distance to the front line short, and we stay very connected to our ecosystem and to our customers and their problems. And on the flip side of that, we've also invested very heavily in our staff. And whether it's having book bars in every single office, or sending people to conferences, or giving people executive coaches, or having coaching circles, every company, depending on their resources, has a variant of degree of what they can offer. But Shopify has always been very devoted to its employees. And if you really want to build a great company and you really want to solve the hard problems, those two things have to be a focus. You have to stay humble and have that humility that the problem is, has to be the heart of the business, and the people you build it for have to be the heart of the business, not your ego. And the people who come to work to join you on that mission, you have to invest more into them than you invest into yourself. You have to give them everything you can. And I think if any business does those two things, they're destined for success in the long term. It's a challenging one for me because I've spent a tremendous amount of time thinking about virtual labor. I built a company completely around the concept of building virtual labor and autonomous employees, and I still, to this day at Shopify, focus on building autonomous employees. I think that the reality of it is that humans at the end of the day still crave a human element, right? So I think that there's some things that, we will become more efficient, more streamlined, and we'll have robotic assistants and artificial intelligent assistants, and hopefully these toolings empower people to do a better job. Like all things, there may be some job replacement, but also there may become an increasing value on having a human help you with something than having a robot help you with something. I think that there's still too much to learn to see how it's going to have an effect, but we just know that the effect is going to come. We just don't know how it's going to shape out. I don't think I'm in a place to be as prescriptive about what 10 years could look like, because there's the optimistic person inside of me that wants to think that all these things are going to empower people to be more creative, start more companies, do all this stuff that I deeply believe will happen. And then there's the pessimistic side of me that equally believes that there's going to be a lot of people who lose their jobs as a result of it. And where things are going to net out is somewhere in the middle. I think the one thing that I've sometimes lost along the way, that I wish I would have kept with me, is that it's always best to be a first-class you versus a second-class someone else. And I think so much along the way as you mature, I've been very fortunate. I've had, I guess to some extent, a lot of success in my life, depending on how people view success. And I definitely think that there's moments in recent years where I look back on myself and I'm not necessarily proud of how I handled certain situations, or in moments where I felt maybe I've been acting a bit arrogant. And those are things where I wish that I don't need to go back 10 years to give myself advice. Sometimes it's just going back 6 months and reminding myself that, I grew up in a lower middle class household, and my parents were hardworking blue collar people, and I come from a blue collar family, and my family still works super hard. And sometimes it's just about getting back to the basics of just remembering where you came from. And I think that if you're really dedicated to your craft and you're really dedicated to the journey, because as we all know, there's going to be a roller coaster of up and downs, but if you don't quit and you stay persistent, success will be there. It's a guarantee. I feel that confident that if you stay committed and you stay persistent, and part of that is the willingness to continue to evolve yourself and evolve the way you think, you will find success. The magic, though, is not losing yourself along the way.